Hello again and welcome back to the garden. I'm really happy today, like really happy, because I finally get to plant my tomatoes. They've been waiting for weeks now to go in and I really wanted to put them in a lot sooner. But what happened was that the April temperatures were really lovely and warm, lots of beautiful sunshine, and they got really strong. And then we moved into May and suddenly the temperatures just fell off a cliff. There's been some really cold nighttime temperatures here, which would not have been good for these tomatoes. And I just didn't want to risk it. But yeah, my grow house is so packed. You should see it. I'll show you in a second. They've been absolutely crammed in there. And it really is time to get them in. It does look like the last of the cold nighttime temperatures has passed. You know, the weather forecasters are rather optimistically forecasting, I think, that it's going to be warmer than Athens here next weekend. It certainly isn't as warm as Athens right now, as you can probably tell from this thick jumper that I'm wearing. But yeah, it does sound like it's the perfect time to get them in the ground. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. Yeah, so here then is the grow house. I absolutely wasn't kidding when I said it was packed, look. There is no room at the inn. It reminds me a bit of a tube train during rush hour. You know, everything's rubbing up against everything else. No one's got enough space. Yeah, it's time to sort that out. And it's been really tricky actually at night when I've been putting the lid on and taking it off again to basically not to break some of the leaves because they're now spilling out over the edge. Yeah, let me take the lid off, I'll show you. Yeah, so you see, as soon as I remove the lid, all the leaves kind of pop over and they're like, yeah, I've got space again. Yeah, I've got so many plants to pick from in here. It's going to be quite tricky to pick the best ones, but it's a really good problem to have, right? Yeah, so I've got 3 different varieties of tomatoes growing in here. I've got the Golden Sunrise, which is this really beautiful yellow plum tomato that I grow every year because it's so reliable. There we are, there's an example. And what I love about this is, and I think it's because it's a yellow fruit, it is always the first of the tomatoes that I have to produce fruit. So it is always really productive and I love growing it. Now I'm also growing a red plum tomato. Here we go. This one is the one which I don't know the name of the variety, purely because it germinated purely by accident in my garden, presumably from an old tomato that I discarded on the compost bin. But the thing to say about that is that my garden soil is not that fertile, it's chalky soil, and despite that it did manage to produce a lot of fruits. So yeah, I decided that it was clearly a very good variety to grow, so I saved the seeds, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to see if it does as well this year. This then is one of my Acquoia plants, and it is noticeably a lot smaller than the other 2 varieties that I'm growing. But that's normal, that's really normal. I find that this plant needs a little bit longer to get going, but actually that's a real advantage because it means that when the Golden Sunrise is running out of steam, this one is just getting going and it really helps to extend my harvests. Now the fruits on this are so delicious, so delicious. They're like this wonderful dark red, almost purple colour, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to tasting them, I guess in the late summer really. Yeah, so those are the 3 varieties. I just have to pick the strongest plants now. Yeah, so here are a couple of containers then that I've got ready for planting out my tomatoes. These here are in my back garden, but actually my most important growing space is in my front garden because that really is the sunniest spot that I have. This back garden here is really very shaded. I'm surrounded by very well established trees. And you know, if we get like a really rubbish summer, which maybe we will, I don't know. If we do, the tomatoes out here in the back could really struggle. So yeah, I actually transformed my front garden on purpose just so that I could grow tomatoes in that really sunny spot that I have there that I'll show you in a second. It's not going to be very sunny today, so you're just going to have to use your imagination. Yeah, so one of the things to mention is that these planters really are very large and tomatoes are quite shallow rooted. So this planter here is a 30-litre planter, which is around 7.3 US gallons apparently, something like that. Anyway, what that means is that around the third of this, I would say, so the bit right at the bottom, you know, the tomato roots probably aren't going to be getting down there. So I really wouldn't use store-bought compost for that. So yeah, what I do instead is I would use anything that you have to hand really, anything natural. So you could use soil from your garden, you could use cardboard as I have here, you could use spent compost, so compost you've had in containers previously that maybe doesn't have a lot of nutrients left in it. I don't know, yeah, anything natural that you can think of, you could probably put in the bottom here. I've also got in there, if you remember, if you were watching this channel during the seed compost experiment that I did, one of the seed composts didn't do very well. And, you know, I don't really want to use it for sowing seeds because the germination rates were really bad. So what I've done is I've actually put that in the base here too. So, yeah, these are all ready. And let's pick out the tomatoes. Yeah, so looking at them laid out here, it really is amazing just how many plants I managed to get in that tiny grow house. No wonder it was so packed. Right, let me see if I can pick the best ones. So the Akoya at the back there, I don't know why I've got so few of them actually, but yeah, I think it won't be so hard to pick. But the red ones, there's a lot of them. I think the one on the end here is looking really strong. I like the look of that one. It seems to be the tallest. And then, maybe this one here. Yeah. Okay. I've made my decision. Yes, I think these are the two chosen ones. Let's get them planted. Yeah, so let's get these tomatoes planted then. One thing to say about tomatoes is that their stems are really quite interesting. They're really hairy and actually they have the potential to grow roots. So what you should do when you plant tomatoes is try to plant them as deeply as you can. And that will do a couple of things. You know, if the roots get that bit more deep, that means they can access more nutrients, more water. So that really helps with resilience. And then of course, the more deep rooted a plant is, if we do get some really strong winds, it's going to be that bit more stable. So yeah, always try to plant tomatoes as deeply as you can. Oh, I love doing this job. It's fantastic, isn't it? Especially after weeks and weeks of waiting. Wonderful. Yeah, so that's gone in. Lovely. You leave the label there so I remember which one it is. And yeah, let's do this one. It is so lovely planting into this soil, this compost. Already my chalk soil, which is very free draining, is rock hard, rock hard. Yeah, quite the contrast, let me tell you. Lovely roots on that. Wonderful. Yeah, lovely and deep, look. And there you are. How happy does that look? Yes, I just need to do the 4 out the front now. Yeah. Yeah, and while I'm down here, let me show you my basil plants. I grew these from seeds. Obviously, they're still very small. But yeah, they're looking really healthy and I'm looking forward to having the basil here and the tomatoes in like a lovely pasta dish. Can't wait for that. Yeah, so in terms of picking the best golden sunrise then, I would have picked the one over here, but sadly the end got snapped off one of the times I was going in and out of the grow house, so it's a bit of a shame. Anyway, but I've still got lots more options. I think this one here is looking really tall and healthy, and then probably the one on the end. Yeah, so I think that this one here and this one here is the winner. They're going to go out in the planters in the front. Yeah, so of the Akoya then, I haven't really got much to pick from, I don't think. I think this one on the end is clearly the strongest. Between these two, I don't know. I'm a bit concerned that this one here is flowering. That seems a bit early. Oh, there's a slug at the bottom there. I've got to sort that out. I've been having lots of trouble with slugs recently. I've lost most of my carrots. Yeah, oh, actually looking at the root system, this one seems to have the better root system, so I'm going to pick this. Yeah, so that makes sense to pick the one with the better roots. So yeah, I'm going to take that one and that one. There we go. Okay, so let's venture out then into the front garden. There we are. Through the gate. Yeah, so here then are my 4 tomato planters out here in the front garden. You'll just have to take my word for it that this is a sun trap because, yeah, There's not much sun today, but before I put these planters in, there was this massive conifer bush that took up this entire space. Really hideous, and yeah, just not a good use of space at all. So I'm really happy that I went to the trouble of taking that out, and it was quite a feat, I have to say. But yeah, it's actually opened up this whole new growing space, and this was so productive for me last year, the tomatoes that I have in this spot. So productive. I didn't have to buy any tomatoes from July until November, I think. Yeah, I had so many tasty harvests. Yeah, so one of the things I did to save money when I was filling up these massive planters was I used a lot of natural materials to fill them up. You know, rather than using bags and bags of store-bought compost that would have been so expensive. So I filled them up using cardboard, using garden waste materials, grass clippings, you name it. And what's happened then, of course, is over time the level sinks. So what I've done then to get these planters ready is I've just literally got some of my own compost and put that down. And then on top, I also put some grass clippings and yes, some of the Dalefoot wall compost that I like to use and that my tomatoes always seem to do well in. But yeah, these are all looking ready now. What I do is, if you're interested in seeing, what this space looked like before and how I transformed it, I'll put a link to some of my garden makeover videos that I did, showing the whole process of, taking out that massive conifer bush and, replacing them with these 4 lovely planters here. So I've decided to switch things up a little bit this year. If I remember correctly, last year I had the golden sunrise on this side. And actually, I came to the conclusion that that side gets the sun first, and therefore it makes more sense to plant the Akoya, which are the slower growing ones, in that position. Partly because they need that bit more light, I think, to get going, but also because if I put the golden sunrise there, then they're basically blocking out the light because they're that bit taller sooner. They're blocking out the light then for the Akoya that are trying to grow. Well, that's the theory anyway. We'll see how we get on this year. And yeah, let's get planting. Yeah, so there's one of my Akoya that's going to go in. Same drill as before, I'm going to put it as high up as I can to try and encourage the roots to grow. Well, despite the fact that it's not a very large plant, there are some pretty good roots on there, so that's a good sign. Yeah, so that's the first one done. It actually works out really well that it's not that sunny today because it's really hard to film in the front garden with all the sun sometimes. What I'll do, I will make sure that I have some plants around the tomatoes as they grow to try and bring the pollinators in, because otherwise, obviously here, there isn't really, much of interest to bring in the bees and things to help pollinate the tomatoes. So I'll have a mixture of things like nasturtiums that I always love to grow. I've got the zinnias that I planted and sowed as part of the seed compost experiment. Yeah, we're very lucky today actually, because obviously one of the challenges we're filming in the front garden is neighbours and things coming and going, living their lives as they should. But yeah, it gets really busy with cars and things, but it seems to be quite quiet, fingers crossed. So let's hope that continues. But yeah, let's get these golden sunrise in. There we go. Wonderful. What I will do is when I've planted this all up with the flowers as well, I'll give you an update so you can see exactly how it looks. Because I do think it would be really good if more people could use their front garden space. Those of us that are lucky to have it, to actually grow things. I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity. So yeah, I hope this video inspires a few people. You never know. Right. Yeah, so this one is the last one that's going in. I feel a bit guilty really. There's quite a few wood lice in here where all the material's breaking down and I'm disturbing them. So let's get this in and leave them in peace. Right. So there we are then, all planted. And I managed to do it without it raining again. for the third time, but I think it's going to rain in any second now. And yeah, if you can see, I've already got a nasturtium here that's self-sown itself. That's fantastic. And yeah, I'm going to be planting lots more nasturtiums because I really do love nasturtiums. They're such lovely flowers. I really love the flowers. And of course you can eat the leaves, you can eat the seed heads before they harden. Although, let me tell you, that is quite a strong flavour. It's not for the faint-hearted. Think wasabi or something like that. Yeah. Yeah, so there we are then. My tomatoes are all ready for this amazing Mediterranean weather that we're meant to be having. Yeah, we'll see. I might need to stake the two golden sunrise at the end there. Yeah, I might get a little cane on them, I think, just to give them a bit of extra support while they're finding their feet. But yeah, fingers crossed for another bumper tomato harvest this year. Wouldn't it be amazing? Yeah, so that's all of my tomatoes finally planted. You know, it's been really frustrating these past few weeks having to wait for the temperatures to warm up a bit, and looking at my poor tomatoes there cramped in that little grow house. So I'm really happy to finally get them in, and I just can't wait for those tasty tomato harvests. Now do let me know in the comments section how you feel about the whole idea of growing veg in your front garden. Do you find it a bit strange, or is it something that you do already? Now, it's just starting raining again here in this Mediterranean weather. Yeah, I guess that's good for the tomatoes. It'll help water them in, won't it? But yeah, I think I better sign off now. So thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye-bye.